G'day, welcome to New Game Plus. My name's Cringe, and coming up on this episode, it's a little bit different because I'm here. It's always different when I'm here, the Brisbane boy in Topsy-Turvy Town. That's pretty much how this goes. It looks like I'm in the RMIT studio this episode, but it's actually movie magic. We're gonna be in Brisbane for pretty much the entire episode, looking at the Game On Festival that was on at the Brisbane Powerhouse a few weeks ago. Myself and the rest of the Zed Games team made it down there to check out the event itself and a bunch of games that were on at the event. And we'll also dive into some of the reviews we've done on Zed Games earlier this year as well. But before all of that, let's check out the gaming news headlines of the week. The South Australian Government has appointed a new Screen Advisory Committee and introduced a Games Innovation Fund. The $300,000 fund is available to South Australian developers working on new games for global audiences, with up to $25,000 available per project. Additionally, 15 South Australian game developers will be supported to attend Australia's biggest game dev conference, GCAP. Minister for Innovation and Skills David Pisoni commented on these additions, saying, quote, "The creation and retention of original South Australian IP is fundamental to growing the sector and will help SA tap into this lucrative market," end quote. At Gamescom in Germany, Nintendo's Indie World Showcase confirmed release dates for upcoming games and revealed new games coming to the Switch. Some of the highlights include Xbox exclusive Ori and the Blind Forest arriving in late September, Dungeon Crawler Torchlight 2 arriving in early September, roguelike Risk of Rain arriving in the next month or so, and Matrix Shooter Superhot already available on the eShop. These announcements come as multiple gaming outlets have had hands-on impressions with the Switch Lite, impressed with its build quality, color selection, and performance. Switch Lite is set to release in Australia on September 20th. According to a report published by Vice, Microsoft contractors have listened to Xbox user voice recordings in order to improve console voice command features. While these recordings should only happen after voice commands like Xbox or Hey Cortana, contractors said that recordings were sometimes triggered and recorded by mistake. Anonymous contractors said that many of these accidental voice recordings between 2014 and 15 were of children, but as time went on, less accidental recordings were made as the feature improved. In response to the article, Microsoft confirmed with Vice that these recordings were no longer recorded as of a few months ago, with, quote, "no plans to restart those reviews," end quote. That's all for now. For more gaming updates, be sure to check out at New Game Plus TV and at ZED Games AU on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
I do want to preface this just with a content warning and a trigger warning, because being a Morticians Tail, it does have mentions of death. So I will be talking about death, I'll be talking about the funeral industry, and there are mentions of suicide as well. So I just want to be really upfront with that.
Just so you're aware.
Yep. So Morticians Tail is a game that was developed by a little Canadian indie game company called Laundry Bear Games, and it was released just over a year ago in October 2017 for PC. It was on Steam originally, and it's since been released for iOS as well. It is quite a short narrative-driven point-and-click game. It is a really cute, endearing game, funnily enough. It's a lot of pastel sort of colours, really nice design. It's kind of just a little, I don't even know how to put it, but it's very cute.
It looks quite minimal.
Matter. It's quite minimal, yeah. So you play as Charlie, who is a mortician. She's just started working for a small family-run funeral home called Rose and Daughters, and you sort of follow her and what she's doing. You follow her story with the funeral home as it gets bought out by a much bigger, much less personal company who cares more about the money than the families of the deceased, and what Charlie does in the end. So as Charlie, you prepare the bodies for their family's specifications. So that includes, for open caskets, you've got to do the embalming process. For cremation, you've got to remove their valuables, and once the cremation's done, you've got to grind their bones up. It sounds a lot gorier than it is.
Sounds fun, actually.
It is all sort of like a gentle, friendly sort of cartoon style. There's purple hues running through the whole game, so everything's kind of this nice purple colour. It's very interesting because as Charlie, you attend each of the funerals of each of the bodies that you prepare. And you get to sort of like listen in on the conversations that their family members and their friends and everybody that's attending the funeral have.
So it's quite emotionally involved, I imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing it from like a different side of things, because obviously everyone has had people that have had family members or friends pass away.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it from a completely different perspective. You're looking at it from the perspective of somebody who deals with this every day. It's their job. They see dead bodies like, 9 to 5. I feel like Charlie, she's sort of like you can project your own feelings onto her.
So it's kind of an insert character.
Definitely.
Okay.
So Charlie never really responds directly to things.
Right.
You play as her and you sort of see through the choices that other people make. You only have sort of one thing that you can do. It is a linear game, so you're not really able to make decisions that impact the outcome, I guess.
But as far as the gameplay is concerned, like when you're going to a funeral, you're speaking with a lot of the family members, but being a mortician, like you mentioned about embalming and removing valuables, like is there like a fail state where you do so poorly that people call you out on that stuff or anything like that?
So there's not, you can't really mess up.
Okay.
So up the top of the screen, it always has what you have to do next. So it does kind of hold your hand through the whole game.
Okay.
And I know one criticism that I saw a bit when I was sort of researching it after I played it was that people felt like it was a tutorial. But I actually sort of looked at it as more of an educational tool.
Okay.
So while it is kind of like a story game, it's very educational. So one of the things you can do as Charlie is you can actually read all of the emails that she gets. So she gets emails from a monthly or weekly funeral newsletter, and it teaches you about like funerals in different cultures, how to deal with different issues and things like that. You get emails from like her colleagues and how they're reacting to the company being bought out, and from her friends as well that are just sort of giving her life updates.
Right.
So it is interesting in the way that it looks at the funeral home business. When they get bought out by the bigger company, it becomes a lot more impersonal. Like they're very much like, you need to upsell these funeral packages. You need to make the money. It doesn't matter what these people want.
And that'll be quite exhausting.
Yeah. But it is a very short game. So it's not emotionally draining, it's just sort of educational.
So I guess to some of the frustrations around like it being an easy game, as long as you don't go in looking for a challenge, I imagine that should kind of ease those concerns, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always go into indie games thinking about what the people who made it have put into it and what they intended it to be. And I know that this game, they consulted a lot with an actual mortician who does TED Talks and all sorts of interesting things, and she is referenced as a death positive person.
Right.
Not in a like, oh,
you
yay.
should die.
Yeah. She tries to encourage people to think differently about death. And
like
I think
not fear death?
Yeah, to not fear it, and to understand it a bit more in the process. And I think that's what this game is setting out to do, is to help people understand that, yes, there's a dark side of the funeral industry, but there are people who really, really care and really, really want it to be the best thing that you can go through or that your family can go through.
Fascinating. So what's so Morticians Tail is available on
iOS for iPhone. It's available on Steam. And yeah, it is a lovely little game, and I would highly recommend it.
The Game On Festival is all about showing Brisbane that game devs are still hard at work in southeast Queensland. It started back in 2012 as a lead-in event to the Free Play Indie Game Festival, but since then it's been running every year, and now it's a standalone event. Thanks to the support of Screen Queensland, it's taking place right next to the New Farm Markets at the Brisbane Powerhouse. And it's a great place to see Brisbane's diverse arts and culture scenes, but games aren't really seen that often here. Because of that, Game On stands out as an opportunity for the local devs to get together, network, have a few drinks, and for the newbies out there, get some public exhibition experience. While the games are at the centre of the event, there are game workshops also being run by local studios and solo developers, showing attendees of all ages what it's like to create game art, as well as your own board games. This year, there are over 20 locally made games on show across pretty much every single platform, looking at VR, mobile, console, PC. If you can play games on it, you're probably going to see it at Game On.
Hello, my name's Evie from Zed Games, and we're here at Game On Festival at the Powerhouse in Brisbane today. And I want to talk to you a little bit about Endless Runner X, which is by TBD Game Company. This game is an endless runner, funnily enough, and it's based off of that Google Chrome browser game that when you don't have internet, you get your little dinosaur that hops around. Yeah, that one. And it's very cool. It's got like 11 different levels and different variations. It's even got a story mode about how the dinosaur can break out of its endless run. It just gives it a little bit more depth and a little bit more feeling. And I've got to say, it's probably one of the most interesting games here at Game On today. I was playing it on iOS. The game is quite challenging during the story mode, from what I understand, even though we didn't have the story mode available today. In terms of the different modes, you've got the dinosaur can be really large, you've got invisible cactus, you've got invisible dinosaur, and it progressively picks up in speed and progressively gets more difficult, which is really enjoyable, except for when it starts getting way too fast and then you start sort of losing your mind in the best possible way. It is honestly a really fun game and I highly, highly recommend it. So we're going to go chat to the developer and check it all out.
Hi, my name is Zach Fitzwalter and I'm part of TBD Game Company. I'm one of the co-founders. There's 3 of us and we're a small indie game company from Brisbane. So Endless Runner X is the first game that we've ever made and it's only come out recently, so last week. And it's been fantastic. We've managed to showcase it here at the event. Being a small company, only 3 of us, so a small indie company, we had so many different roles to play. So, we had to come up with the idea, we had to create the game design, we had to actually develop it, and then we had to play test it, fix it up, bug testing, making sure it worked, and then actually releasing it, publishing it, and then also marketing it as well. So there are a lot of different hats and roles to play in this particular project.
How's the feedback today at Game On? How's everyone finding this game?
It has been fantastic. So we've been lucky enough that people are just coming up to us and they're saying, oh, what's this game? Well, this game looks a little bit familiar. And we're like, yes, come sit down, come and play it. And so there's just a stream of people coming through, trying out the game. And yeah, it's great because our game is available now. People can download it and actually try it out. So we're getting a lot of people playing it, realizing that they like it, and then actually downloading it, and then they'll sit there and play it on their phones as well. We're actually having trouble getting people to leave because they're hanging around playing it, which is fantastic. So the game is available on the iOS App Store. If you head to endlessrunnerx.com, you can find it there, or if you just do a search on the App Store for Endless Runner X, you'll be able to find and download the game.
Fantastic. Thank you, Zach, for your time.
No worries, thanks.
Hey, what's going on? It's Koshi here from Zed Games here at the Powerhouse in Brisbane for Game On Festival. We've been playing a bunch of games around for the day. One of them, to note, for me at least, is Pink Marmalade 2. So it's by a single developer who's been working on the game for about a year. After making the first game, he was able to add some new features and release the second one. So basically, it's a twin-stick style shooter, but you're using a mouse and keyboard. WASD for movement, mouse for shooting, and what you are is a little pony kind of creature that you then avoid it. So it's kind of like a shmup, if anything. So shoot them up, dodge all the projectiles, kill as many enemies as possible, and get the highest score. So far, I've played it a few times. I got the highest score for the day so far. So come at me, gamers. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully I keep the score at the end, but it seems really bright and colorful with a pixelated art style. So that's something that's kind of right up my alley. I'm really enjoying just diving in. The music especially, it gets you right into the mood of it. It's got this like funky style of hardcore funk style EDM. So while that's bass boosted into your earphones, you're able to run around and kind of, kill as many enemies as possible. You've got different exhausting effects, bleeding effects, and just chance of effects before dying, which ends up being hectic and chaotic, but also it has a lot of fun elements of it as well. So I really enjoyed it. There's plenty of other games here that I've tried to play around, but it's one that really stood out for me.
I'm Francis Vase. I'm not working on. I've made a game called Pink Marmalade 2. That's the game I'm showing here today. It's a twin-stick-esque frenetic shooter, where what I'm trying to do with it is have everything be really kind of knife-edge gameplay. So the enemies have really low health, but the player also has really low health and is always in danger. It works on both mouse and keyboard and controller, but I forgot to bring my controller today, so today it only works on mouse and keyboard. I think, the typical control scheme of WASD and mouse is pretty standard, so I wanted to go with something that people generally would know, because I want it to be something that can be played at multiple levels, so someone could pick it up and they could have fun just trying to survive, and then as they get better at the game, they'll learn more about the mechanics and what they can do, and they'll be able to find deeper ways that they can have fun even as they get better. I don't have any music in the game itself, but I am a musician, so I wanted to make sure that the music in the game really suited it and really added to the experience. I think that just essentially all of the senses combined to make an experience, and so if I can have the audio kind of adding to the visuals and adding to the feedback that the player's getting, then it just makes the whole experience better. And so I did spend quite a lot of time curating the soundtrack, and I also spent a lot of time trying to make sure that the way that the sound was coming out was reflective of the player's current state, so that just essentially everything in the game is feeding back to the player.
You've been having a bunch of reactions. Like, what's the general feel of it when you play it?
In general, the actions have been pretty good. Some people, there is a level of explanation needed for some of the mechanics, and I'm not always able to jump in straight away, especially if people have the headphones on. It can be hard to give instructions to people who are already kind of in the experience. But everyone who's kind of gotten the hang of it seems to have really enjoyed it.
So today I played Pink Marmalade 2 on PC. It's now available for download on itch.io, so you'll be able to download that for yourself and have a good time.
Hi, my name is Millie and I'm from 4ZZZ Zed Games in Brisbane. And today we're at the Brisbane Powerhouse, where we are hosting and viewing all the games at the Game On Festival. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Unpacking. So Unpacking is a game where you play the role of a girl who is currently going through different stages in her life. It's a little organisation game, basically. So what you do is that you drag little things from the boxes onto the shelves. The thing is that you have to place these objects in a certain place. Otherwise, they'll flash red and it's not where they're meant to be. Say, for example, a diary. You don't exactly want your diary out for the whole world to see. So you might need to put that away in a drawer. This is where the puzzle element comes into play. However, I will say that the game is not so difficult as such, so it wouldn't really class it as a puzzle game. It's more of a gentle romp through someone's life. And you experience it through the almost zen-like way of unpacking boxes.
Hey everyone, it's Kate from Zed Games, and I'm here at the Game On Festival in the Powerhouse in Brisbane. I've just had the opportunity to play a game by the working title of Royale Rising from the Game Loft studio here in Brisbane, and here's what I thought. Basically, it is incredible to see a battle royale game that is on mobile and looks this phenomenal. It is a beautiful game and it is massive. The worlds are actually humongous to the point where you actually have different ways to travel to different areas in the map, and the gun is auto shoot, so you don't have to worry about aiming, which is fantastic because they've really taken into account the fact that it is a mobile game. The only thing you have to worry about is 1, finding a chest that has the weapon in it, and 2, running around and avoiding players. Once you have gotten into the game and it is auto shooting away, eventually, of course, unfortunately, if you're like me, you will die, and as a result, you become a ghost. This is not the end though, and if you maintain your ghosthood through the game for long enough, you do have the opportunity to blow up other players in the game, which means you can still win even if you die. So, like I said, this game is a massive battle royale game with awesome opportunities to kill lots of other people, and the world is huge, so I definitely enjoyed this one. So the working title, like I said, is Royale Rising from the Game Loft Studios here in Brisbane. It is a massive mobile battle royale style game with very little controls, easy to get into and start playing and enjoying yourself.
Hi, I'm Rani from Zed Games here in Brisbane. We're at the Brisbane Powerhouse today at the Game On Festival. I've been playing Fertile Crescent, which is an RTS game. I actually got to play it with fellow Zed Games host Kate, and it is a single player game, but it can also be multiplayer, so local. So that's what we did, and pretty much you're expanding your entire sort of little tribe that you start with, and essentially what happened is once you get it built up, you can battle with your friends, but we didn't really make it that far because Kate couldn't keep her village fed. So while I was working on building my farms and then moving on to military, Kate was struggling to get enough berries to feed every single person in her village. It's a lot of fun. It has a beautiful art style. It's kind of a little bit less detailed than you might be used to seeing in games like Clash of Clans or Age of Empires, which makes it really simple and easy to look at, play, and just get sucked into for hours and hours.
Hi, I'm Andre. I'm working in a two-man team, and we're working on the Feral Crescent. It's inspired by the Bronze Age in the Near East, so roughly 2000 BC to 1100 BC. And the game mechanics are inspired by events that happened during that time period. So the art style, I'm actually not an artist, so I had to do an art style that I can do. And I made a mock-up with an art style to begin with. I sent it to a few artists to get feedback, and they all liked it. And then I thought I'll just start with this and see how it goes, and maybe I'll get an artist later. And then we just kind of built upon what we had, and then we just got really good feedback, and so we kept it. Yeah, so our build right now is focused mostly on multiplayer, because we had a voting with our community a year ago. Do you want single player content or multiplayer to begin with? And multiplayer won. So we started with multiplayer, and we also thought that was a good way to get the community engaging and playing against each other. So right now there is a single player component, but it's a bit simple, but we're going to add a lot more single player content as we go.
Yeah. Awesome. What was maybe your biggest struggle developing this game?
The biggest struggle is working on part-time over a long period of time. And also really nailing the basics of the game, the main game mechanics that's making the game fun, has been designed and refined over like 2.5 years to get to the point where it is now.
So I played Fertile Crescent on PC. It's available on Itch.io for free at the moment, but it should be coming to other platforms soon. Definitely get in on it as quickly as possible. I will be as soon as I get home, downloading it onto my PC.
So Game On fills this niche where it's not as big as some of the other commercial or community shows that you might see in Sydney or Melbourne. It's definitely a lot smaller. It feels a lot more cozy than those other events. But with that comes a sort of intimacy where you're able to play the game at your own pace and sort of get to know more about the game and the creator, because they're standing right there next to you as you're playing the game. It brings that different vibe to an audience that doesn't usually experience games that often. With the Powerhouse right next to the New Farm Markets, at least in the mornings, you have a very different crowd coming in and getting a very different sort of game convention experience than you typically would. And because of that, it's a really unique experience that you're just not going to find anywhere else. And that's it for this episode of New Game Plus. Almost said Zed Games because it feels like it, but this is New Game Plus in case you forgot. Be sure to check out New Game Plus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at New Game Plus TV. Twitch and YouTube, in case this episode isn't enough for you, and I completely understand why it wouldn't be, is New Game Plus TV as well. And if you want more podcasting in your life, be sure to check out Zed Games on iTunes and Spotify. The website is zedgamesau.net, and we're on social media, obviously, at zedgamesau. For now, that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.